Thank you, John. I want to wrap up tonight by saying a few words about return on investment. And I think Frank Callanan actually said it best when he said that what Malvern Prep does, as John just said, is we change lives here. The return on investment of a Malvern Prep education is transformation, not transaction. There are many, 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 many schools, great schools, phenomenal schools, some independent, some public, some charter in this southeast Pennsylvania area. And you guys, as parents, have extraordinary choice available to you, and that's a blessing. Malvern is a very specific kind of choice. This is not a transactional experience. What you are investing in is the transformation of your son. You entrust your son to us so that we can help him, with your assistance, to become the best possible version of himself. I want to think about this question of ROI by thinking about the annual letter to shareholders that Berkshire Hathaway just issued for the 2014 fiscal year. And you can see at the bottom, it's their 50th anniversary, you can see at the bottom that annualized, over 50 years, the return on investment at Berkshire Hathaway is over 1.8 million%. That is just a mind-blowing number. We're not talking about dollars and cents when we talk about a transformational experience, but what the two things have in common, investing in Berkshire Hathaway, which has a steady vision, a commitment to excellence, and by the way, there are a few people who are as data-driven in their decision-making as Warren Buffett. There's a real consistency in the way that Berkshire Hathaway approaches excellence and the way that Malvern Prep approaches excellence. What you have done is you have invested at the earliest possible stage, essentially, in your son's lifetime return. This year, there will be a great return on that investment, and you see that, I hope, when your sons come home from school every day. And at the end of the year, when you can look back on the experience, I hope you can say, that was a hell of a year. And when he graduates from Malvern Prep, I hope you can say, that was a hell of an experience. Sorry, Father. And 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, and Don O'Neill, who's a proud member of the class of '57, whom John referenced, who's been out of Malvern Prep for quite a while, you can look inside yourself and you can say, Malvern Prep transformed me. That is something that you can't put a dollar number on that, as impressive as Berkshire Hathaway's figures are there. But you are spending, as parents, you are spending a tremendous amount of money to send your sons here. And so it's worth knowing that the leading organizations across the globe are telling us that the things that matter most to them are things that we need to be mindful of right now. Not 5 years from now or 10 years from now when your sons are close to graduating or already graduated from college. It's too late at that point. We need to be mindful at Malvern Prep now. I'm going to show you a great video in a minute of our 6th graders taking advantage of what we are mindful of now and what we are investing in now. So I just want to tell you a couple things. I'll pick out 2 of these companies up here to illustrate the point. IBM does an annual survey of CEOs, about 4,000 CEOs, and among those who are interviewed are not only chief executives from the various offices, but also board directors. And what they discovered is that the single most important quality in a highly successful CEO is not what you'd think it is. It's not strategic financial management. It's not excellence in kind of industry expertise. It's creativity. And I don't mean creativity in the sense of being able to walk up to a canvas and paint a beautiful oil color. So I'm not talking about creativity in the sense of being able to sculpt something. Those are meaningful, actually quite profound expressions of creativity. But these CEOs talk about creative thinking, divergent thinking, problem solving in ways that matches the theme of the NAIS conference, designing the revolution. understanding that you have to ask the right questions first, and then you have to figure out, using the resources that are available to you, how to solve that problem. And McKinsey, which is probably the leading consultancy in the world, did a survey in 2012, a report really in 2012, on what global employers are looking for and what schools are actually doing to prepare their students to be employed by these global employers. Right? Theoretically, there should be a pretty good match there between what middle schools and high schools and colleges are doing in the classroom and what employers want. That's fairly logical, right? Well, the problem is that there was a tremendous mismatch between what global employers reported and what teachers and students reported. Teachers and students said that what mattered in their education to prepare them for the global economy and the global community were things like domain expertise, discipline expertise. I know my foreign language really well. I know my math really well. I know my English really well. And I have good grades that reflect that. Those things matter, of course. But students and teachers thought that those were the primary things that mattered. In the same exact report, and remember, there were 8,000 people who were surveyed for this, McKinsey discovered that employers want students who graduate and come to them as prospective employees, and I'm reading off the list now, who can analyze critically, who can collaborate, who can communicate, who can solve problems, and who can think creatively. That's who McKinsey and IBM and Forbes and Fast Company, and you go through the list of the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, the local mom and pop store down the street, that's the kind of employee that the world needs. And so the educational experience at Malvern is being designed to meet those needs. This is a picture of a proposed space. It actually won't even open until the spring at Villanova University, their Innovation and Collaboration and Entrepreneurship Center. We've had that same exact space for 2 years in the Learning Commons. Villanova, Harvard, Hopkins, all the leading institutions of higher education in this country understand that they must think about what McKinsey reported and what IBM reported. They must think about how they will change the learning experience to match what the world is demanding. We've been doing that for 2.5 years, at least. And actually, I would propose that we've been doing it for much longer than that. And here's just a quick example of some students in our Learning Commons working, that they happen to be students from my writing seminar, but they could be from any class, working together, solving problems that I had posed to them or that they had identified themselves. If you happen to look at our blog, the most recent post is by Stephanie Giampietro, a mother of a current 6th grader. And she talks about how her son, and she sees this every day when he comes home, her son is learning how to collaborate with his peers, how to communicate with them, with his teachers, even better with his parents. It doesn't always happen with adolescents, as you know. Learning how to solve problems. That's what Malvern is doing. That's what you're investing in. And the bottom line is that the vision that we have, the data that we collect and that we act upon, that will result in a return on investment that is transformational, not transactional. And as a final example, sort of a little metaphor for that, as a final example, I want to show you guys a video. That summarizes one project. It's called the Scarbox Project, and we have 3 students from our middle school who will come up in a minute and show you their actual project. But before we do that, we want to show you a quick video that highlights from start to finish the extraordinary work that these young men have done.
Builder of guitars and ukuleles and things like that. And he started talking this year coming up, he said he wanted to figure out how he can integrate building instruments into class. And I was like, well, I was actually thinking that, so let's combine efforts and we collaborate together.
This is a project that Mr. DeVito wanted us to do. We built a cigar box guitar, which is a guitar consisting of a cigar box, a piece of wood, and a string.
He really wanted us to learn about sound waves and how they were formed.
We also did a side project and investigated a side piece.
On topic of our choice, so we had to contact professionals to find out more about these.
Ours is seminar.
There's music we use for like playing an instrument. Ours was why does soldiers get stuck in their head?
We do a project launch for every project that I do. I wanted something else engaging, so I brought in a band called Seagulls to come talk about how they make music, and that was really the premise of it, to understand how music is made through collaboration and through understanding of sound, to relate to the kids that, you know, this is the local band who makes music, and they're still integrating physics and collaboration and communication into their building of music.
His name is Dr. Daniel Margoviash, and he's a neurologist and professor for neurology at University of Chicago.
I reached out to a professor at Harvard. We also reached out to a scientist who did a study on bats and how they use sonar, which is interesting because it kind of leads to how some of these
We learned why sound waves are formed, how it happens, how like sound waves are formed by vibrating objects.
We learned a lot of things about sound. We also learned lessons, like how to persevere, how to push through things.
I learned that we have to communicate well with our partner. It was cool because you got to choose your own like cigar box and just kind of personalize it. Ours was really nice. I liked ours the end, and the sound was good. So I really like the build.
Probably the highlights were messing up a few times. First we messed up on the wood, and then we messed up screwing in the wood in the box, so we didn't get the box.
All right, so explain to me this. How is that a highlight?
It was kind of like the final triumph because people were really far behind. We just kind of pushed through and got one struggle. I mean, messing up twice was kind of a big deal for like a sixth grader. And this project I thought was going to be super hard, but when it was over, I realized how great it was.
The first day, the kids are learning them. You can tell them they're having fun. They don't know that they're learning. They don't know how hard they're working, that they're working toward an outcome. And I think the kind of benefits that probably 20 years from now will probably know that they've got.
Has this been different from last year for you as a parent?
You're helping them kind of source them. You're helping your son finding a project expert. The big difference is they're not just getting the what's, they're getting the hows and the whys. Well, I don't think they knew that they were studying sound waves until about halfway through. And then they had this aha moment where it was all about sound waves. I mean, they were using power tools and they were building a cool guitar, and then they figured out that they were building sound waves. And that was really good because they'll never forget that information because they lived it. And living it and learning it are two different things, and you never forget the things that you live. So I think that's been really, really good. The project experts were great in a couple ways. I mean, I think it was fun to be able to go through the touch with different people who could help them, and that was kind of neat. It was interesting to watch them muster up the guts to give these guys a call and plan for it and set that up, which isn't easy. And they had to deal with that, another skill. And then what I thought was really interesting about that was the reaction of the experts. My son got to call a high school buddy of mine who runs one guitar. And you know, the excitement that guy had over the project that these kids were doing, it translated
I'd like to bring up Gavin and Victor and Austin. And think a little bit about...
You use screen Castify
Okay.
You can upload the screen cap.
Okay. Thankfully, I cut that off before Mr. Wasson said something inappropriate. Is that not mind-blowing? I mean, I actually got tears in my eyes looking at these guys talking about a transformational learning experience. And you saw at the beginning, at the end of that video, that what student-centered learning means at Malvern is framed by our conviction that St. Augustine created a spiritual and educational roadmap. Those are not two different things, they're the same thing. And so when you look at our Augustinian values, truth, unity, love, we pursue the truth, but we do it primarily through asking questions. Augustine believed that there was nothing better than a great question that led you one step closer to God. And we do it in unity, working together. And we do it animated by love for one another. Those are the values that John Chubb talked about that distinguish a Malvern Prep from virtually any other school in this area, which I'm very proud of. And I'm very proud of these three guys. And at this point, I want to move into